Hi there, this is Dune again. I just thought I'd take a minute to say thank you for purchasing my new book. If you haven't purchased it yet, what I'm going to do right now is read a story out of here. We had a reading a while ago, and a lot of people attended, and it was great fun. There were a lot of old friends there and a lot of new friends, but the main thing is that many people couldn't make it. So I had quite a few people ask me how they could see it other than that one book reading. So I'm going to go ahead and read a different story than I read that first night, just so that those who came that first night could also get a different picture if they haven't bought the book. It's a lot of fun, and so I'm going to read a story about out of the chapter called "The Care and Feeding with Ronald McDonald." These are just a few stories from my 20 plus year history as Ronald McDonald. It's chapter 10, The Care and Feeding of Ronald McDonald. I'm lucky. I've been a huge television star who is loved and adored by many, and at the same time, an anonymous and completely unknown person. There have been times when I flew into an airport and they made the other passengers wait in their seats until I disembarked first, so that I could meet the press and various dignitaries. Then, an hour later, I was out on the streets, able to have dinner with no hassle from anyone about anything. One time in Kodiak, Alaska, the Rear Admiral and his chief of staff had to live without the only limousine on the island because I was using it. I was the most recognized children's entertainer in the world, even more recognized than Santa Claus. Yet because of the costume, because it was a costume, a character, a fictional being, when I was out of costume, no one knew anything about me. I was a quintessential Joe Schmo. As humans, we all have different roles to play, and these roles teach us a lot about ourselves. I'm a son, a husband, a father, a business owner, a teacher, an author, an entertainer, and also a beloved children's character known as Ronald McDonald. Ronald taught me so much about love, responsibility, kindness, joy, inspiration, and about the zen of living life right here and right now. When you're in character, Ronald takes over, and all of the other aspects of yourself get to sit back and watch a master at work. The story that I'm going to read happened in Fairbanks, Alaska in about 1990, and I call it Blood on the Ice. We happened to have an appearance scheduled at a semi-pro hockey game between the Anchorage Aces and the Gold Kings of Fairbanks, an intense local rivalry. I had done many of these appearances before, and traditionally Ronald does an appearance on the ice during the first intermission, walks through the crowds during the second period, and does another on-ice appearance during the second interlude. Our company was already sponsoring the puck shoot during the first break, so this game is already set up to be a fun one. On my first night of arrival, while we were all out to dinner, someone asked me if I would like to borrow a set of skates so that I could skate around during the breaks. Well, I had been raised in Colorado, and I'd done a bit of skating as a kid, so I thought about it for a minute. I realized I could easily make a set of big red shoes built onto the skates, and it would look just like one of those memorable commercials where Ronald picks up the kid and skates around in a circle while holding him up in the air. Now I was getting excited. So I said, sure, let's do it. We all set about to make it happen. As the week progressed, I was able to make it to the local Fred Meyer's store for the cardboard, glue, red felt, and other supplies that I needed. And I started working on the skates. I hadn't been on skates for at least 15 years, so I thought we might want to schedule a practice session sometime before the show on Friday night. However, there just wasn't any time in the schedule. I was working all day, every day. I wasn't too worried. I would take it easy and not try to do anything too crazy. One of my personal gifts has always been to find a way to make things work out. I'm capable of doing just about anything I put my mind to. Thanks to Johnny Carson, I taught myself how to juggle. I kept meeting deaf people at work, so I took sign language classes to help communicate with them. I learned all of the skills I now use whenever I needed them. Magic, stilt walking, balloons, riding in a unicycle, etc. I really wasn't worried about the skating because I'd done quite a bit of recreational skating as a kid growing up in Colorado. I just thought it might be a good idea to spend a few minutes on the ice if we could squeeze it in. Finally, we realized that if we showed up to the rink about an hour early at 5, in the evening when no one else was there, we could spend about a half hour on the ice. I would get out of costume after my last school appearance, practice for a while in my street clothes, and then get back in face before the game started at 7. Ken, the arena manager, drove me from the hotel and got me into the building. It was one of the duties of his to facilitate the game. The stadium was completely empty except for a few people who were there at work early, so we were basically alone. The other McDonald's helpers weren't going to meet us there till just before the game with the tchotchkes. Tchotchkes are inexpensive toys for children. Ken introduced me to a security guard and he took me down to the floor of the stadium, where I strapped on the big red shoe skates and headed towards the ice. The guard opened the door for me and I stepped onto the smooth, slippery, cold surface. I should take a minute now to discuss the difference between hockey skates and figure skates. As a kid, we rented our skates, and the only skates they had available were figure skates. The main difference between the two types of skates is that the figure skates have a jagged teeth on the toe of the blade. This enables the skater to push off with their toe and perform many different kinds of stunts. Hockey skates have a smooth blade from end to end. I didn't really think about the difference till after. I tried to push off with my right toe as I'd always done, and there were no teeth on the tip of the blade to push with, and I wound up falling flat on my face the very first step. My feet slipped, slid, and shot completely out from under me like a cartoon character. It was my first moment on the ice. Step, slip, flop, and splat. When I said that I'd fallen flat on my face, that wasn't an expression. I had fallen, and my face hit flat on the frozen surface. Hard. I was a little stunned, but still conscious, so I started to pick myself up and assess the damage. A big red drop of blood hit the ice. It was about the size of a quarter, and I was followed by more huge splats. It was then I began to realize that I might be in trouble. I climbed to one knee and spun around to sit up, looking at the security guard behind me. You've heard that expression, he turned white as a ghost? Well, I guess this was the kind of event that expression springs from. The look on his face was incredible. He immediately started screaming, "Ronald McDonald is bleeding! Ronald McDonald is bleeding!" Looking back on it now, I think it's funny that he never came to my assistance. He just kept screaming, "Ronald McDonald is bleeding!" I crawled on my knees and worked my way off the slippery ice and back onto the rubber, where I could finally stand back up again, trailing blood all the way. By then, the guard had his radio out, and he was screaming into it, "Ronald McDonald is bleeding!" The funny thing was that he hadn't set the radio to make a call for anyone in particular to come and help. Instead, he set the radio to announcement mode, so every speaker in the entire arena blared out, "Ronald McDonald is bleeding!" The volume was deafening, reverberating off the empty seats and concrete walls. "Ronald McDonald is bleeding! Ronald McDonald is bleeding!" By then, the whole left side of my face was covered with blood, and my eye was completely filled, and my shirt was well on the way to the trash. Imagine what would have happened if I had not been able to schedule that one practice session before the game and had done the splat in front of hundreds of children. These are the kinds of things that Ronald's nightmares are made of. I reached a basket filled with used towels from previous hockey practices and grabbed the first dirty towel off the top and put it on my forehead to quell the spurting. Apparently, my face hit the ice with such force that the wire from my glasses became a knife blade. It cut straight through my eyebrow to the exact shape of the top rim of my glasses. I was a little shaken up and of course embarrassed, but other than that I was fine, with the exception of the gaping hole in my forehead. They took me to the dressing room to wait for the team trainer to come and take a look at me. But I didn't have to wait for the trainer. I had 4 sons by that time, and I knew what a stitches cut looked like. I needed stitches. What I didn't count on was the trainer's attitude when she got there. "Yeah," she said, "this happens all the time. The doctor will be here in a few minutes. He'll stitch you right up." I looked at the clock above the mirrors and saw it was 5:15, and the game didn't start till 7. We weren't scheduled to be on the ice until around 7:45, so it just might work. The show would go on as planned. Someone got me a clean white towel, and I settled down to watch the minutes tick by as I waited for the doctor. Waiting was actually the most difficult part of the evening because the hardest part of working this kind of job is the pressure to be Ronald McDonald all the time. I had already been performing for 4 days straight, 14 hours a day, without being late, without getting angry, without disappointing anyone, and without saying anything inappropriate. I had so far always been prepared and brought joy to my audiences with fun, silliness, and entertainment. I had never missed one appearance in the previous 10 years, and I certainly didn't want this to be my first. I wasn't exactly sure how I was going to pull this one off, as every minute ticked by, I got more and more anxious that I might not be able to make it. You see, when you're the star and you have to do a great job, well, that's just what everyone expects every time. However, if anything goes wrong, it's ultimately your fault, period. If you're late, it's not because someone else set the schedule too tightly 3 months ago. It's Ronald's fault. If you show up at an appearance without your wig and it's a 3-hour drive away, it's not because your driver forgot to pick up the wig case with the other props at the hotel. It's Ronald's fault. And yes, that has happened to me. It doesn't matter if you've given away 1,000 toys throughout the day. If you run out of toys, it's never anyone else's fault. Invariably, you'll hear one of the moms say, "Ronald McDonald made my daughter cry." If I missed this appearance and disappointed hundreds of children and their parents, it would be my fault. And unlike being a real celebrity, if I screwed up, it could have certainly been the very last time. I might have been replaced before the next visit, just like throwing out the trash. Sad, but so very true. The doctor didn't show up till about 6:30. He took one look at me and told me to lie on the dressing table. There was one long table stretching maybe 10 or 12 feet end to end with lighted makeup mirrors the whole length. I climbed up to the table and waited as patiently as I could for the doctor to clean me up, administer the deadening shots in my head, and start sewing me back together. As I was getting the 4th or 5th suture at about 15 minutes before game time, all I could think of was, "Hurry up, man, I've got to be in costume in less than an hour." Total of 7 stitches later, I sat up, thanked the doctor for his efforts, which I never got a bill for, and quickly went to work. First, I cut down a Band-Aid just big enough to hide the stitches and cover the whole thing, and I covered the whole thing with whiteface and did my normal makeup. It was obvious at close examination that something was there, but from a distance, like from the seats around the rink, it would be no problem. I just barely made it on the ice for the puck shoot at the first intermission in my regular shoes. I told the audience that I had an accident on the ice and thanked the doctor for fixing me up. Normally, I might not have mentioned anything, but I knew that it would be seen when I did the meet and greet throughout the crowd, so I used this as an opportunity to talk about safety and the value of community helpers. Once you're in face, the character takes over. He understands how to handle everything. Ronald knew that I had to be honest, human, grateful, and sincere, and then go to work rubbing elbows with his fans, like always. At the end of the game, I got the chance to sign the team banner for the Gold Kings, and I sign it. Now I know what it feels like to leave my blood on the ice, just like you do every day. Keep up the great work, Ronald McDonald. I no longer work as the world's most famous hamburger clown. I'm still a full-time magician and family entertainer, but after 22 years, I hung up my big red shoes. They gave me an award as a master clown for my 20 years of service, which is an actual bronzed Ronald shoe mounted on a plaque. I also received an honorary doctorate for child psychology and a large gold ring with a ruby where Ronald's heart would be for my first 10 years of service. However, it was through the thousands of zany experiences in face that I got the best gift of all. I learned the value of hard work, of loving people more than money, of being prepared, and of being flexible. I learned how to take responsibility for my actions. I learned the value of joy and how to facilitate fun, and about what is and what is not important. Once I was doing a safety program at a fire station in Portland, Oregon. I was just about to call the children together and take them inside the station to do a magic show when one of the firemen was demonstrating how to rappel down a rope at the top of a hook and ladder. He must have hooked up his line wrong because he wound up falling 4 stories straight to the ground in front of 100 or so people who were watching, and luckily into the capable hands of a bunch of paramedics. It was horrific and freaked us all out. However, since Ronald was there, none of the children saw the fall. They were looking at me. I realized that not one child had seen what had happened, so I quickly called the children inside the station and did my show. Simply because I was in the right place at the right time, and because I was Ronald McDonald, the children were spared the trauma of what I have actually dreamed about over and over again. Instead, they had a wonderful time watching a funny magic and juggling show with their favorite television clown. I'm eternally grateful to McDonald's and to Ronald for all the things I learned while watching him work from the inside. So, the whole book isn't about Ronald. I've got lots and lots of clown stories. Some of them are heartbreaking because life happens. But it's a pretty wonderful read, and I love it. So click on the link, give it a buy, and I'll sign it through the web here. Or I'll pretend to sign it, or whenever I see it, I'll sign it. Have a great day.